Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Stream On. I'm Jim Williams, your host. Now, I'll tell you what, we have a very fascinating guest this week. We're going to take an inside look at Cue Ball, which is a outstanding documentary on Fox on FS1. It airs throughout the month, and by all means, check it out. If you can't seem to find it, just look at your Fox Sports app, and I'm sure that there's going to be times that they'll set it there. You can probably get it on demand on that same Fox Sports app. Again, the name of the production is Cue Ball. Now, it's about the Cue Warriors. Kevin Durant's production company is the one that did it. It is about a prison league basketball team at San Quentin, where hardcore criminals are learning to be better people by playing basketball. Now, Durant's production company, 35 Media, joined forces with HEIST and Hunting Lane Films to produce the film, which airs, as I said, on FS1. It's debuted on May the 28th, so there's plenty of opportunity to see it, in those days when the NBA Finals are not on. And my guest this week is the man who not only directed it, but wrote it. He's a multi-award-winning filmmaker, and he's now the head of Fox Sports Films. And that, of course, is Michael Tolajian. Michael, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. Let's talk about the fact that, it is a story about some hardened criminals at San Quentin, but for some reason, and I shouldn't be uncomfortable saying this, but you end up liking these guys.
Yeah. It's an experience that I went through myself. I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that, and I'm glad that you just from watching the 90-minute film that you are feeling some of the same things that I did when I went in and got to know these guys. Yeah, it's tough, man. I struggle with getting to know these guys, liking them, rooting for them, but also then finding out their crimes and the impact that they had on the victim and the victim's families and even their own families. So it's a mixture of emotions and feelings, but ultimately the men we focused on are guys that have admitted their mistakes and have committed to changing their lives and becoming better men. And I'm all about I like telling uplifting, positive, hopeful stories, and so I'm glad that came through, because I think these are men that are worth rooting for, but also understanding that they did some bad things, and that those things do still have lingering repercussions. So it was a complex story, and one that was not an easy line to walk.
One of the things that in the article that I wrote about the film that I felt was important was that I thought this was a family film, because there's lessons to be learned. And I got a lot of people who went like, what? And I'm like, seriously, if you watch it and you look at what these people are saying, they were simply one bad step away from either their life went one way or another based on a single step.
Yes.
And these are these are lessons to be learned. The film puts that right in front of you. I mean, everybody you talk to, they tell you how they got there. Yep. And for most of them, it was a turn gone the wrong way at the wrong time, and which doesn't minimize any of it. But I just think that from a family standpoint, it's not a bad film to watch with your kids.
No, I think at the San Francisco premiere, we had kids probably as young as 10 years old, and a lot of teenagers there. I mean, that's one of the look. I'm not here to make message films by any means, right. But if films can have a positive, if there's a positive message that can come out of it, look, a lot of the inmates in this film, they participated because they want their stories to be told and to be seen by young people, especially young people that are in at risk, that are living in the same neighborhoods and facing the same obstacles and pressures that they did. They want this film and their stories to be an example of what can happen in just a split-second decision, getting in the wrong car with the wrong people, whatever it is. And if you're a minority, if you're an African American or Hispanic, or living in the inner city, it's the odds are stacked against you, and for a lot of these guys, they didn't have the means to like a great lawyer or things like that would maybe help other people get over one crime or one bad mistake. So these stories are important, and it does show. And Harry Smith, who was one of the characters, he and I have actually gone. We went to the juvenile justice center in San Francisco, and we spoke to kids that have already started getting in trouble and going down the wrong path, and are really one step away from San Quentin. And Harry said the same thing. He said, it doesn't take much. It takes one lapse, just one mistake, and you could be facing 5, 10, 25 years in prison. And so it's crazy. And I think you're right on the money.
Mark, one of the things
I hope it's a film. I hope it's a film that all ages can see.
Mike, one of the things I've been a long time, was a longtime friend of Steve Sable, and also of Ross Greenberg. These two guys who have been, part of my life in different areas from television standpoint. And I think that one of the things that you did in your documentary is channel some of what they've done. And that is, you told stories by allowing the people involved to tell their stories. And that's not an easy thing to do, but you did it quite adeptly.
Thank you. Steve Sable, NFL Films, and Ross, HBO, those guys are, legends in the sports documentary world. And I've watched, a lot of their films and their work, and taken from that and learned from that. And so I appreciate that comment. But yeah, that was the goal. I wanted for the characters, the men that live these lives, to tell their own stories as much as possible. And that can be tricky. I didn't know going into this how well-spoken these guys were going to be. I didn't know how open they were going to be about their past. But once I started talking to them and see how genuine they were and willing to speak about all the things that they went through, both good and bad, I knew that we could do this completely driven by their interviews and their stories, that I didn't need a narrator to connect all the dots. And I was really excited about that. I didn't want the hand of the filmmaker through narration to affect or to influence how the story went. I really wanted it to be from their own words, if possible.
Stream On will continue after these words from BMW, makers of the i3, the ultimate electric driving machine.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW i, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back to Stream On. What about you? You really had some characters on that basketball team.
Yeah.
A couple of interesting stories that didn't make it in the film from those characters. You want to share something that kind of hit the cutting room floor, but was still kind of interesting?
Yeah, let me think. I'm trying to think.
Because there's certainly plenty of stuff that was in the film. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of the biggest thing I think was, we interviewed a lot of the other guys on the team, and that was a tough thing for me because I think the first rough cut was like over 3 hours, and there were a couple other characters that are in the film peripherally, but we don't get to tell their full backstories. That was really difficult for me to take out of the film because we had to get the film down to 90 minutes.
Sure.
It was really hard to take those out because their stories were just as compelling. There was one character, Cornell Shields, who we interviewed. So he actually got married while he was in prison and conceived his son in prison through a conjugal visit. And his wife lives in Oakland, Berkeley area, and we filmed with her and her 3-year-old son, and we learned what her life is like and how difficult her life is to try to keep raising her son and paying the bills and all those things everybody else deals with her husband incarcerated. So that was a very moving piece, and that was something that I really wanted to include, and it was very tough to have to take it out, but I think that was one that really resonates because she was quite a character and a very strong woman, and it was super interesting just to hear about why she married this guy who was incarcerated. So
it's one of the guys who I thought was kind of a bit of a show stealer in some regards was the play-by-play guy for the team. I mean, he was hilarious.
Yeah, he's a piece of work. Aaron Taylor, his nickname is Showtime, and he lives up to that, no doubt. He is really talented. I mean, I think you saw that scene where the guys are watching the NBA Finals on TV,
right?
And Aaron is actually watching the game and doing the play-by-play as if he was the TNT announcer.
Right.
He was working on his craft, but he's an extremely intelligent guy. He's funny. He's got a quick wit. He's got a nickname for every single guy. And for me as a filmmaker, he was a godsend because, we're showing these games. We have to tell the story of these games. And if there was no announcer, how would you know what
advance
was going
the
on,
story, right?
What the score is. So it was unbelievable gift for me to have this guy who has a professional level talent as an announcer, calling the games, doing the play-by-play, adding the color, and we were able to mic him up, record that, and he's really the thread. And he's also been at San Quentin a long time. He's been involved with the basketball program a long time, and he's seen all the stories and the ups and downs. So beyond just being a great announcer and kind of a comic relief for us, he was able to, paint a deeper picture of what's going on there and how basketball is helping these guys.
So he's the Gus Johnson of the San Quentin broadcast team. Okay.
Yep, he is exactly the Gus Johnson. He's the voice of the San Quentin Warriors.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. As I said, outstanding documentary, and hopefully everybody will get a chance to see it because it's worth the time and worth the effort. What's coming up next? I understand you've got a lot of stuff going on in that pipeline for Fox, and you guys have stepped up with the docu situations. What's up?
Yeah, Yeah, we're excited. So, we just launched our Magnify documentary series about a year and a half ago. We've already been nominated for 2 Sports Emmys, and our goal is to grow that brand. Just as ESPN had started their 30 for 30s over 11 years ago, our goal is to people to know, just like people know what 30-30 is, what they're going to get here 30 for 30. Our goal is to say when people hear Magnify, Fox Sports Films, that they know they're going to get, gripping sports documentaries that, where sports is really just a lens or a vehicle towards a larger story, where they're going to hear stories that they've never heard, and maybe they're stories that will help them think about what's going on in the world and maybe think a little bit differently about what's happening. So that's the goal. And beyond that, we also are doing a ton of projects with the leagues. We have league partnerships with Major League Baseball, the NFL, the USGA, college football. So we're cranking out a lot of original content along with our league partners. And so I'm a busy guy, but I really feel fortunate to have been able to direct cue ball, and I hope that people see it and see it and like it just as you have, and start to be like, oh, this is the type of film that Fox Sports is doing. I want to see more of that. So that's the goal.
Special thanks to Michael for joining us today. By all means, check out Cue Ball. All the information will be in our show box below. It's Cue Ball. It's on FS1. Find it on FS1, the app demand. So that way you can see it anytime you want, or check your local listings on FS1. It'll be playing throughout the month of June. Okay? All right, we'll be back with more of Stream On right after this from BMW, the ultimate electric driving machine. We're talking, of course, about the i3.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW i, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, if you're not one of the over 50,000 people who have taken the time to subscribe to the podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we make it free. You can find us at the iTunes store. Why? Because we're part of the Apple Podcast family. And not to discriminate, if you go to Google Play, you can find us as part of the Google Podcast family as well. You can find us on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Now, if for some bizarre reason you can't find us, pull out the old Google machine, type in Stream On with Jim Williams, hit the favorite button or the subscribe button, and each week you'll get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your tablet, to your phone, or hopefully to both. Now, I said we couldn't make it any easier. Well, actually, we can. And that is if you have an assistant device like Alexa or Google or, any of the Apple devices, which of course answer to Siri, you can say, hey, Alexa or Google or Siri, please play the latest edition of Stream On with Jim Williams, and guess what? They'll do it for you, okay? So, folks, please go out and subscribe today. We would greatly appreciate it. Speaking of greatly appreciating, we'd like to thank our guests for the day, of course, Michael Tolajian, the filmmaker, the documentarian who did such an outstanding job on Cue Ball. Check it out. It's on demand for Fox. It's FS1. It's an outstanding documentary on the Q Warriors, the San Quentin Warriors basketball team, folks. You got to watch it. Again, highly recommend Cue Ball on FS1. Check it out. Speaking of checking things out, next week we have the entire cast of an outstanding and outrageous BBC sitcom called Living the Dream. And I got to tell you, folks, it is hilarious. It's about a British family of 4 who make their trip to Florida. They've come into Disney World. They're coming to the beach. They want to check things out. They fall in love with the state. Who wouldn't, right? And they decide, you know what? When the time comes to retire, we're coming back. But a funny thing happens. When they get back home, they think about all the fun they have, and they decide, why wait? Why not chuck this job that we have here in merry old England and head back to Florida? And you know what? We'll get into our own business. We'll start our own business. And what they do is they buy a trailer park in Melbourne. Now, obviously, what could possibly go wrong when a family from the UK decides to take over and run a trailer park in Melbourne? Yeah, I can't think of anything that could possibly go wrong. Can you? Folks, it's hilarious, and we look forward to talking with the cast of Living the Dream. Big hit on BBC, about to be a big hit on BritBox, okay? So that's what we got for you next time. So until next time, for the entire team here at Stream On, I'm Jim Williams saying thanks very much for joining us this time. We'll see you in a week.